Well, hello, sports fans. Larry Eater, Run Blog Run, the good-looking gentleman in the middle, Stuart Weir. This is your favorite podcast, Athletics Chat. It's number 95. Can you believe it? How can we have so much fun by the middle of the week? Stuart, greetings and salutations.
Hello.
How are you in the lovely land of Oxford?
Yes, the sun was shining today.
Good, good. Did you have a nice Easter with the family?
Yes, quite busy because we had kids and grandkids, but good fun. Yeah, all good.
Now, do you guys do an Easter egg hunt in the UK, or is that a US thing?
We did 4 of them over the weekend.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay. All right.
The grandkids absolutely love them.
Yeah. No, I used to love it when my grandma would put stuff out, and we'd have to go around her yard. We had a Buster Brown golden egg from the Buster Brown Shoe Company. And I think my grandma put $1.25 in it, which in 19, at the age of 10, that was a lot of money for me back then, and still is today,
I just had this great idea. Do you think we could put this to World Athletics? Instead of a steeplechase, to have an Easter egg hunt that athletes run laps around the track that have to find Easter eggs. The winner is the person who completes 10 laps of the track and is carrying 10 Easter eggs.
I like that. I think that one in I remember in college we did the Burrito Mile, which was you ate a Taco Bell burrito, ran a mile, and I think you had to have a beverage afterwards. And I do remember they did one up at the University of Oregon, and somebody did a mile like that in 5:08. I just think that's scary. The other event I thought about doing was, I remember back at Mount SAC, which is Mount San Antonio Community College down by LA. They used to have a wonderful hammer throw competition. And this has got to be about 1992. Ken Flax, who was an American Olympian, Ken fouled off the right sector, I believe, and about 260 feet out. And a couple had a small igloo ice chest, and they were having a picnic, and they had to get up and run away, scurry away, but they left their igloo, and the hammer hit the igloo, and there had been a watermelon in it, and all the pink juice just came up out of it, and it was a Zen moment. And so my head coach, Joe Mangan, and I thought about from 200 feet to 240 feet, we would have cantaloupe, and then we would have watermelon, and then we'd add other things. So it would add a little bit of excitement to the hammer throw,
Yeah. Do you have Sepco's number? Because I just give him a call now and tell him we've got these 2 great ideas.
I think
get them in Oregon.
I think we should do it. He's down in Jamaica right now, I believe.
Oh, is he? Right. Okay. Well, he may not be answering his phone. We'll leave it till after the podcast.
Okay. That sounds good. That sounds good.
But just if you're doing a reservation for Oregon, add a day on, because we may need an extra day to put in the extra events.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That could be. Well, they've got ASICS and the World Athletics just announced a 5K that they're going to do on the marathon day. They're asking a lot of money, $50 to run a 5K and to get a T-shirt. That is a bit much.
Good quality T-shirt, obviously.
I guess I'm wondering if it's like signed or maybe it glows in the dark or it sparkles or something. Something I could wear to the disco too.
Yeah.
That would be a good sign. So last night in Inside the Games, one of the columns that they were chatting that Birmingham, after the Commonwealth Games, may consider a bid for the World Outdoor Championships. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's true. And I think it would be an excellent idea. I mean, Birmingham is our second city. It's an hour and a half north of London. It's got an international airport, good train network, and it's an athletics city. And for the Commonwealth Games, they've really done up the Alexander Stadium, put in seating all the way around, increased the capacity significantly. And they've had a Diamond League for years and years. Birmingham has twice hosted the World Indoors, most recently in 2018, when you felt it was a little bit cold because of the snow, but that was very unusual. And I think a lot of people would say that the best World Championship which we have had in recent years was London, certainly in terms of crowd. You look at Doha, you look at Beijing, you even look at Moscow, and the stadium were half full, whereas London sold out for just about every session. So I think that Britain is a great place to hold the World Championships, and the new Birmingham Stadium will be a great venue. And I'd be very pleased just to inform Katerina Stefanidi and others that they're closing the gaps between the stands, because she always used to complain about the wind coming in the gaps and making it difficult to pull for. So just for her, we have overcome that problem. So I think it's great. And I believe you could just confirm this. I believe there's maybe one or two Indian restaurants in Birmingham.
Yes, I do believe that in the U.S. they really don't know how to serve Indian food, and so I travel to London and to Birmingham to worship Indian food too, and walk along the canal and find some fine restaurants with great food, and also we need to tell people that Birmingham has the second most canals of any city in the world besides Venice.
Well, actually, I think you're wrong in that. I think it's
Really?
got more canals than Venice.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been wrong before.
Even more canals than Venice. So absolutely, Birmingham's the place to come. And it's the Alexander Stadium. That ought to be the Cherry Alexander Stadium, but it isn't. But at least Cherry is back there and will be directing the meet, assuming that it goes ahead.
Do you think we'll see the Olympic anniversary games back?
Oh, definitely. The problem is that the reason there are no anniversary games this year is all the fault of Americans. I mean, most things in the world are, let's face it.
Oh, of course. Yeah. If America's not at fault, yeah. What do you say?
The problem is that because you chose to have the World Championships in July, July is the only month that the London Stadium, as it now calls itself, is available for track and field. Because as part of the deal, West Ham United football or soccer team have it, but for that 1 month of the year, it's available for track and field. And that normally works because normally the anniversary games are in July. But this year it didn't work. But certainly I know the plan is for it to return next year in the month of July.
Awesome. Well, why we're having it in July is because that's when the best trout fishing is in Oregon. And also, it's probably the best chance that the 20 days they don't have rain, is during that time as well, So they've got that all planned out. They worked something out with the track gods, I believe, and our friend Chris Turner, who I spoke with this morning, he's the director of the Heritage Division at World Athletics. He's got a small track museum, a bespoke museum in Portland, and they'll have one in Eugene now too. And I believe this next week he's going to give World Athletics historic plaques to the Boston Marathon and to Penn Relays. So he gets to go to the Penn Relays next weekend, which will be kind of cool, But let's see. I had a couple questions for you. Jack Buckner, has he spoken to assembled media yet at
No, he has not started the job yet, and he has not spoken publicly other than to say that he's excited to be getting the job.
Yeah, I mean, everybody I spoke to several people who worked with him at Adidas, and they were all so happy for him. And I talked to some Americans who, in fact, a brand that had had him as an athlete back in the '80s, and they just everybody seems to think highly of him. So I think that's really something good in his favor.
Oh, I think that's right. I mean, the only negative I think you could think about is that he is 60. So, I mean, of course, age doesn't mean a lot, but it means that he's probably not going to do the job for 20, 25 years. But then you could ask the question whether that's a good thing or not.
That's true. That's true. You wonder how long people can, stay on a position. So,
yeah, I mean, if he comes in and does 10 years and passes on to someone else, hopefully he can stabilize the ship because, I mean, frankly, from where we are at the moment, the idea of somebody staying 5 years would be wonderful, given that not since 2017 have we had somebody who was there for 5 years.
So you guys have the Birmingham Diamond League this year, and then you have Commonwealth Games this year.
Yeah.
And then we'll have London in the fall. And do you believe, has there been a word out yet that London will go back to the springtime? Because I'm wondering if after seeing Boston this last weekend, if they regretted not being in the spring.
I believe that is the plan. But interestingly, I was talking to my son, who's just a club runner, who actually ran London last year. I'm having to try and think last year, and I've got a place again this year. And I mean, he made a very interesting point: is that if you are just a club runner, October is actually a much better date because if it's April, you're doing all your training in the dark in the winter. Whereas if you've got if it's in the fall, you've got summer evenings in which to run, and particularly for women, where there's a safety issue. That is a significant factor, I think. It suits the elite better because the London Marathon has traditionally been our championship trials. Whereas, last year we just had the championship trials, which was effectively 40 elite runners running around a park with no spectators, which, I would imagine must be more difficult to do your best performance than if you're, having crowds cheering you on. But I believe that is the plan, but I'm not sure it's been confirmed yet.
Now, the Brighton Marathon, which is an alternative to London and has done quite well in its own right, did that happen this spring?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. That is Tim Hutchins is very highly involved in that.
Yeah, Tim's been involved with that one for last 5 or 6 years. Any news on Keeley Hodgkinson right now? How she's doing, or how her training's going?
It seems to be going well. There's pictures on social media of her training partner. Arabella, daughter of Trevor Painter and the name is gone. Jenny Meadows, absolutely. Who seems to be enjoying being on the training camp with them. So I think it's probably going well. Now we were certainly informed that Keeley was not injured in Belgrade, but just had a tweak, and didn't want to risk it. But it was not an injury that was going to debilitate her going into the summer. They just took the decision. There was a slight strain, and best not to risk anything.
Well, how do you translate that?
Well, I don't know, because I think I probably believe it, but I don't want to name names. But I can think of athletes last year who said the same thing, and then it proved to be a very serious injury. But it's difficult, really, because I think that people deal with injuries differently, and some people are very open and others like to keep it quiet. So the indications are that she's in training and that it's going fine.
Now, last summer, when Dina Asher-Smith had some issues, she pulled out of the 100. She ran the relay, correct?
Yeah.
And I seem to recall an interview, a piece that you did, where she said she needed about 2 more weeks of training.
Yeah. In fact, she did the 100, but didn't make the final, and she pulled out of the 200 and then ran the relay. And I mean, at the time, it did seem puzzling that you would pull out of your strongest event and then run the relay, but it may just have been timing. Yeah, I mean, I think, in all honesty, not much information was coming out about that, and we just had to take it as it happened. There was no real briefing, but
the week before Boston, a very popular runner in the U.S. named Mark Conover. He was the 1988 U.S. Olympic Trials marathon champion. And for the last 25 years, he was a coach at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, died. He had cancer. It had come back 3 different times, and he had battled it over, my gosh, since 1994, off and on. He has triplets, 2 boys and a girl, and his lovely wife, who is a fine runner at Arizona. We'd like to keep them in our prayers. Mark decided that about 3 or 4 days before he passed that he wasn't going to take any more treatments. And we did a piece the night before with his wife's approval, just kind of telling people a little bit about him. He's just a good guy. I would see him at track meets 3 or 4 times a year, and we'd smile, we'd catch up, tell a story. He was always very thoughtful. He really loved coaching, and he had a great group of young athletes at Cal Poly, which is one of the fine programs in the state of California, across the country. And he was a good man, and a good father and husband. And we're going to miss him. But he qualified for the 96 trials, his 4th, a year and a half after having Hodgkin's lymphoma, and ran a 2:20 marathon to qualify. When he won the trials in '88, I don't think anybody thought he could win but him. And I remember watching him go by Ed Eyestone, who was now the coach at BYU, but a very fine, was a collegiate 10,000 meter record holder back then, and a very fine runner, a 3-time Olympian in his own right. Went by him at the New Jersey waterfront. So good memories, really classy guy, and just, one of the good ones. And just thought we should mention him. The Boston Marathon happened last Monday, Patriots Day. I was not there, but we had David Hunter, one of our writers, and he did really nice columns on the men's and women's races. Paris Jepchirchir, the Olympic champion, won her 5th marathon in a row, going back to 2019. But it was a close one. It came down to the last 50 meters, and she battled a young Ethiopian who we've seen a bit around, and it was very, very exciting. And in the 50th anniversary of the first time women ran at Boston, which was officially in 1972, to have the women's race, I think, much better than the men's. I mean, the men's was pretty darn good, and Evans Chibet's a great runner. But I think it was, I think it was kind of cool to see the women's race. So about 25,500 started, 98% finished. It was a glorious day, great crowds. And so for the first time in 3 years, Boston Marathon's back to, its spring Patriots Day, which is, Stuart, in the state of Massachusetts, Patriots Day is a holiday. And I swear to gosh, half the people who live in Boston are on the course. it's 2 or 3 or 4 deep. Some people get out there at 6 a.m., 3 hours before the elite races, 3.5 hours. They have their picnic chairs and they have little barbecue things and a couple beverages, and people are selling hot dogs, and it's craziness. And but it's wonderful Boston, and a great city, huge sports city, probably one of our biggest sports cities in the U.S. And it's the most iconic of marathons. I mean, one of the guys, and always characters winning. There was a guy named Clarence DeMar who won 7 times. And after his first time in the physical, the doctor told him never to run again because he had a heart murmur, and that if he ran, he was going to die. Well, he won his 7th Boston when he was 42. So I guess that wasn't going to, kill him. So, but there's great stories, as there are with other marathons. And when the crew decided to start the London Marathon, they went to New York and had seen Boston, and I do remember David Bedford at the media and cocktail party getting up there with the New York people right next to him and welcoming everybody to the world's greatest marathon. He used to love to say that to stir it up, and London is wonderful in its own right. I miss it. It used to be a week or two separated it. And I remember one year where one day separated it. I literally watched the London Marathon, jumped on a plane with Mark Bossardette, who was working at Saucony at the time, and we got there at midnight so I could get a night's sleep so I could cover the Monday race. So it was running around New York or London trying to get to the airport was a challenge enough. We had to push our bags to get around, but always good stories when we're trying to cover these things. Here's a question for you. After you got to go to Tokyo, what was the most challenging aspect of being in Tokyo during the Olympics?
I think the most challenging thing was actually getting in, because I remember checking in London and sighing with relief when the check-in clerk confirmed that I had all the right documentation. And then when we arrived in Tokyo, it took us 1 hour and 3/4 to be processed, would be the only word to describe it, going from desk to desk to be dealt with by the meat staff, the immigration staff, the Japanese health staff, then to have a test, which if it proved to be positive was the end of your Olympics. Just all of that. I just felt that once we got there, you just accepted the regulations. Having got through there, I got to my hotel and I stayed in my hotel for 3 days because that was the rule. Then you could only travel on official transport to get to the stadium. No eating in restaurants other than the official Olympic restaurants. And you just accepted that. No sightseeing, no eating out. Mixed zones worked, but were different. But through it all, I felt what a privilege I had to be there, because so many people weren't. I remember talking to Megan Tapper, who said she didn't mind running her Olympic final with no spectators because she's so focused. But she said, as I stood on the podium, I thought there's no one in this stadium to see the greatest moment of my sporting life. My husband isn't here, my parents aren't here, my friends aren't here. In fact, nobody is here. And I think that was an interesting athlete's perspective. That was what was most difficult. But for me, I just felt it was a privilege to be there. And most of the year, I thought either the games wouldn't take place or I wouldn't think it was safe to go. But in the end, I was there. I was in the stadium when Sidney McLaughlin, Karsten Warholm ran their world record runs. And, that was an incredible privilege. I could list any number of other great performances, but those two just suddenly spring to mind.
No. I mean, it's when I think back to Rio, I was sitting in the BBC booth, BBC radio booth, and chatting with the team about the men's 800. And I remember taking a moment to soak it all in as David Rudisha, ran for his second goal. And it was just amazing to hear the crowd. And over the last few weeks, like there was a track meet down at Mount Sac, Golden Games. And then right before that, there was a meet in Bermuda with a great crowd. And I'm wondering what the athletes are starting to feel right now. And in Boston this weekend on Charlotte Purdue, one of your top runners, finished ninth in 2:25:27, and a fantastic performance because that is such a tough course. The first 16 miles are downhill, and then you start going up. And when I ran it back in '86, I ran my PBs at 5, 10, and 15, and I got to 20, and there was nothing left. And I heard stories from John Tracy told me about it, where he just needed to run decently from 22 to the finish. And the first time he ran there, he just couldn't put it together. It's tough. And you have to respect the course. So Charlotte did a great job. But having people out there again, the crowd, I think, is a big deal.
I mean, Charlotte is not somebody I know personally, but I admired greatly how she dealt with the disappointment of not being selected for Tokyo. Was very gracious about it, and actually did let her running do the talking.
Yeah, no, that she's a class act. She's coached by the Australian, and I'm just trying to think of his name right now. That's married to Sonia O'Sullivan, and I'm having a senior moment, but I will put something up on the report. But yeah, it's a coaching from afar, but it seems to work. So those are things that are good. We're getting to the. I remember for so many years when we talked about the British men's 4x4, all we had to say is, well, we don't know how Martin Rooney does it, but he's able to pull a 44 leg out. And now that Martin's gone and retired, who do you think is going to be the next leader of your men's 4x400 fortunes?
Just before you do that, Nick Bido.
Yes, Nick Bido. Sorry, Nick. He's a good guy, great conversationalist, and has coached an incredible number of fine athletes from Australia and the UK. So
we have to say that in the men's 4x4, we're starting at quite a low level because we did not have one person running the individual 4 in the Olympics. And so I don't think you'll see, we may have a team in Oregon, but I don't think they'll be on the podium. I think that's going to take a few years for that to develop. It's just, we're quite a small country compared to yours, and at the moment, it just doesn't look as if we have that quality of athlete. There's probably half a dozen I could mention who have the potential to develop, but it may take them a year or two. It'd be interesting to see if perhaps in the European, whether we can get a relay team in the Europeans, which can be in medal contention, and then perhaps be thinking for 2023, 2024, to be in contention at global level. But you see, the other outstanding quarter miler that we've had is Matt Hudson-Smith, but who has struggled with injuries and struggled with his form.
What about an athlete like Adam Jamili? Will we ever see him move up to the 400?
I don't know. He hasn't, to me, shown any inclination to do that. And he's had a lot of injuries and perhaps feels that, I don't know, you might argue that that running less fast for longer might be better for some of his issues, but I don't know. That's an interesting idea. I mean, when Alison Felix decided to run the 400 for the first time, I think some people were shocked that she proved that it was arguably her strongest event if she'd really given it everything.
Yeah. What do you think will be the fortunes of the British women's 4x4 in Eugene?
Again, I don't think we have the speed at global level to be in the medals. I mean, I would expect them to be in the final. But you see, in the days of Christina Horrigu, who was a 49-second runner, and when you had Perry Shakes, Drayton, Ailey Doyle, people like that who were finalists in the hurdles, you had a pretty good core to start with. Whereas I don't think we will have anyone in the women's flat 4, or perhaps not in the hurdles. Possibly Jessie Knight could sneak in, but so I just think you need at least one who is at that level. Ideally, 2 or 3. I mean, the Americans could have probably the 8 at that level or more. Just at the moment, we don't have that. And we've been incredibly successful in the sprint relays by working on our strengths, really drilling the changes. But of course, that's less important than the 4x4. Remember Ailey Doyle once saying to me, indoors, you can win a 4x4 relay with tactics. But outdoors, generally speaking, the fastest team will win. And, when you look at the team that America or Jamaica can put out, we don't have 4 runners who can run at the speed that they run.
No, you've had some good squads, and I remember Christina Haragu in 2007. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun to watch British relay teams. But there are cycles. We have it in the U.S. too, and this World Indoors, neither the men nor the women medaled, and it kind of blew my mind.
The greatest relay I ever saw was 2012 World Indoor in Istanbul, where Christine Horrigu was on the 3rd leg. Christine would tell you that she never enjoyed running on the boards, but she had been persuaded to do that relay, and she got the baton in 4th place. And she moved from 4th to 3rd to 2nd to 1st, and then handed over in the lead to Perry Shakes Drayton, who had somebody called Sonia Richards Ross, I think the name is. I gather she's quite good at running 400s.
A bit, yeah, I've heard of that, yeah.
And Sonia didn't ever quite catch her. And, Perry ran like the clappers, or whatever you say, and just managed to hold Sonia off. Everyone expected Sonia to take her at some point, but she held it on and got the gold medal. And we quite enjoyed that one.
What do you think about the 4x1 for British men and women in Eugene?
I think the women will be in the medals, no question.
Okay.
The men, of course, I don't know what will be the aftermath of what happened in Tokyo, where, of course, they finished second, should have finished first, but then with CJ failing a test, all the others, particularly Richard Kilty, a first major final and all that, losing the medal. And whether that will have a psychological effect, whether it will make them more determined, whether they can, Uja was from memory a 9.900 runner. So, We don't have too many of those around. So you'd think that on paper it's going to be slower than it was in Tokyo. Certainly in the final, probably challenging for the medal. But I wouldn't put my house on them being on the podium.
Well, we will have to wait and see and prognosticate a bit more next week, my friend. You've survived Athletics Chat number 95. Stuart, have a lovely week. To our viewers, thank you for watching Athletics Chat 95. Run, jump, or throw today. Tell someone that you love them. Stay safe. Thank you to Mike Deering for trying to manage both Stuart and I, from several thousand miles apart. And Stuart, thank you for putting up with my stories. Talk to you soon.
Good.
Hey, hello, sports fans. Larry Eater here, your favorite podcast, Athletics Chat. It was number 95, guys. Can you believe it? Stuart's put up with me for 95 weeks, and Mike Deering hasn't pulled all of his hair out yet. My gosh. Will wonders ever cease? Anyway, so this is the epilogue. This is where I talk to myself, otherwise called Larry's Monologue by my girlfriend, and a convo with Larry from Michael. But, he does have a wicked sense of humor. So this week we were just talking about various and sundry things. First of all, British 4x4 chances for the men and women in Eugene. Secondly, 4x100 chances. We congratulated Charlotte Purdue, one of the number 3 all-time performer from the UK in the women's marathon. We discussed that Birmingham, which will be hosting the Commonwealth Games this summer. And I played a little prank on the Scottish media guys back in 2014. It actually had been started by Stuart. And one of the reasons why he and I chat is Stuart told some media guys that the U.S. was bidding to get back into the Commonwealth Games because, they had been part of the U.K. at one time. And I went along with it, and it was pretty funny. But, Scottish media guys do have a sense of humor. There's a lot of rain over there, so they need something to write about. But it was a lot of fun. And so the Commonwealth Games will be in Birmingham this summer. And the way that it works this summer is that we have the World Champs in July in Eugene. We have the Commonwealth Games beginning of August and the European Championships the end of August. Yours truly is hoping to go to all 3 so we can write about that and cover them live for you. And we'll keep our fingers crossed there that we can do all those fun things. But it's going to be a busy summer. And starting off with the Prefontaine Classic, the 28th and 29th of May, right? Yeah, 27th and 28th. And just found out that Marcel Jacobs is going to be running the 100 there. So that should be kind of cool. But it's a busy, busy summer. We've got championships in 2022, 2023, which will be in Budapest, 2024, Olympics in Paris, 2025. Have no clue where that's going to be. 2028, that's going to be in L.A. For sure. I was in L.A. in 1984, have pictures and my tickets and all that stuff as well. Saw Marti Vagno, who got PQ'd, battle Alberto Cova, and went crazy in the stands with my boss, Derek Clayton at the time, from Runner's World. So it was a fun time, and it'll be a few different years, but I'll be a little grayer, but it should be a blast. So we look forward to seeing everybody this summer. Find some housing. Hey, there's some little towns outside of Eugene, Aurora and stuff like that. They'll be wonderful to stay in. So just, be patient and know you're going to have a little time driving. Eugene's a college town. There's a lot of fun stuff there, but there probably won't be any veggie burritos left, by midday. So just be prepared and be patient, and you'll have some fun. Larry Eater signing off for Athletics Chat 95. This is the epilogue. Thanks to Mike Deering, our creative and production manager from the Shoe Addicts, who manages most of our podcasts. And thank you to Stuart Weir in Oxford, England. And thank you to you, our viewers. Run, jump, and throw today. I did my cardio for an hour. And tell someone you love them. And be patient with people, okay?